Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where today's show is Authentic Achievements. And I'm delighted that today we will be discussing leading with clarity, strategy, mentorship, and the power of better questions. And to join me in the dialogue of how we bring this to life for you, I'm going to be joined by the fabulous Matt Gillis. Matt is an executive leader who helps business owners and organizations streamline, easy for me to say, operations, maximize financial performance, and develop stronger leaders so they can achieve sustainable growth. Matt, please join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Kim. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's a delight to have you. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation because it's so important, isn't it? There's so much that we talk about in how we can help evolve and grow. And we talk a lot about the advancements of technology and digitalization, but they all have a pull and a toll on one key role, isn't it? And that's leadership.
I would agree 100%. I think that's one thing. It's the foundation of what we do.
It's so true. And yet it's one of the things that we perhaps don't invest enough time in evolving as well. You know, as we've moved into that more digitally advanced with the addition of AI and the fear that that brings for people on what that's going to do for their career longevity, for their future, for their children. There's even more requirement, isn't there, for leaders to be able to step in and lead that role. Would you say that's true?
Oh, I think 100%. I think there is a lot of fear around AI, but I think one of the biggest things, excuse me, is AI is a tool. And I think that we're still going to need a great leadership in place to be able to handle that tool, because leadership, that human touch is always going to be there. And I think that that is one of the things that we're lacking today. And I see so many comments, so many feedback that are mostly generated from AI. But when you see a leader who has developed and thought through ways to help people how to really deliver that content, AI just boosts that with helping them to be able to focus and give ideas.
I love that. It's so true. You know, I think for me, it's a great tool to augment. It's a great way of helping it clarify. You know, this is what I think it said. What do you think it said? As somebody, you know, somebody different to me, because we do have that trap of assumed knowledge, don't we? We know what we know, and therefore, when we share something, we can fall into that trap of assuming other people have a similar knowledge sphere to us. And I find it can be quite helpful in highlighting that gap. Is that something that you would acknowledge?
Oh, I think 100%. And I've always been amazed that when I have gone out, I've put something together, and of course, you always think your stuff is wonderful. And I will plug it into AI, some platform, to ask it, you know, what am I missing? Is there something here, or just the wording of it? Because I'm not the best at grammar and spelling. And it will spit out something and give it a tweak, and I'll think, oh my gosh, that's great. And so I think that's where it is, and then I can develop on that. So 100%.
Oh, I love that. I think it's so true. And I think sometimes for me, you know, I get some of my best ideas talking to people. It's why I love the show and things like this. So you get to chat with like-minded people, and develop our thinking, learn a little bit more, see things from a different perspective. But I'm also a solopreneur who spends a lot of her time on her own when she's not doing these things. So it can be a really good sounding board to your point, to run your ideas that you've probably got a little bit wedded to, that you probably are thinking like these are brilliant, and get that alternate perspective of, that's not what I took away from what you said. I thought you meant this, and you're like, oh, that's not quite where I was going. So I can tailor that.
100%. And I think that as a good leader, I think we have to realize that we don't always have the best ideas and we don't always know all the answers, that we just have to get out there and try it. You know, I watch so many creative content creators today, and their one thing is just do it. You know, don't sit there and try to make it perfect or think about what you're going to be doing. And I have really found that that helps, because when I put ideas out there, I try not to put craziness out there, but when I put stuff out there, I get so much great feedback from people that help me to develop those ideas. And that's it. Sometimes what we're saying is not always what people are hearing. So to be open to that and to go back and say, hey, I realize where you're coming from, and that's not exactly what I meant. Or you may even get an idea and say, hey, that's better than what I thought.
I love that, because it's all about how we advance the conversation, isn't it? How we continue the debate. And like you said, you know, often as leaders, we can fall into the trap of feeling like we have to know all the answers. And yet, as the show title talks about, one of the greatest things for leaders to learn is to understand the power of better questions. Because actually, if we get really good at asking good questions and we've surrounded ourselves with good people, then collectively we're going to end up with much better answers, aren't we? So how do people start to get into that realm of asking better questions instead of being stuck in the realm of needing to know all the answers?
I think it's just like with building your muscles, working out. You just have to get used to it and keep doing it. Be willing to fail at it, because you're not always going to have the right questions. But it really comes down to listening to what people are saying, active listening, and not just listening to respond is what we tend as humans to fall into, but actively listening to what people are saying and picking up on it and just asking that back to people. One of the best questions I have in dealing with situations and mentoring people is, and what else? Because people will come to you with a problem and you listen to it, they want you to give them the answer. And that's so easy for us to do sometimes. I'm not saying giving the answers to problems is easy, but it's easy for us just to say, this is what you need to do and move on. But what we want to do and what we want to develop in people is the ability to solve those problems. So at the end of it, I don't really know what to ask. I'll say, and what else? And it's amazing that I may have to do that 3, 4, 5 times. But by the time we get to that, people are seeing things that they knew all along, but they just didn't realize.
That is so true. Yeah, I see that so often, because the challenge that they've often got is they're so blinded by the initial problem, that everything else is hidden slightly behind it. And once that first problem has been resolved, or there's a path to resolving it, then actually when you ask that question, and what else, they can see the bits that have been hiding in plain sight, that are those, oh, well, actually, well, if that bit was fixed, there's this and there's this. And I think there's, you're right, sometimes people do want the problem solving, and sometimes they just want to sit with you whilst they voice the problem and work it through for themselves, don't they?
That's so true. And I think that you get into that. And one of the great things about it is the first, what else? They may say, oh, this is the problem. But by the time you get to the fifth, it's something that they didn't even realize that really is the root of the problem that they need to solve. And I think that we as humans, that's what we need. We just want someone to talk to, someone to be able to voice it. And so many times, and people get me on social media for saying this, they're not real. If you're not a real leader, you're managing or a boss, you just come in and you may ask a question, but then you're just going to give them, this is what you need to go do, and go do it. And that's not, again, really helping the person at all. We have to develop our leadership, and it happens over time.
Yeah. It does. It's an iterative process, isn't it? And I'm of the belief that every single one of us is a leader in some way, because we're all leading our own life, and we have to make those decisions, and we have to take risk assessments, and we have to edge our bets on where we want to go. And yet we hold leadership skills off for somebody who has that in their title, as opposed to someone who has that just because, as an everyday human being, that's what we're doing. We're leading our life. And so if we can develop that thinking, that ability to problem solve, that ability to sit with a problem, and to your earlier point, often we wait for perfection, and yet progression beats perfection every time. Because once we do it, we can, sometimes it goes well, in which case great, sometimes it doesn't go well, but we can see what didn't work and we can try again. So it's more in the iteration, isn't it?
That is it. And you can't look at it as failure. I mean, that's the first thing that people have to get out of their minds. Every time that you do something and it may not be great, you're learning from that and are able to do it better the next time. Because you can go look at some of my social media and stuff out there, and especially in the beginning, and even now, I'll put stuff up and I'll think, well, that's just bad. I'll put it up anyway, and it will get more interaction than anything else I've done. So you never know what's going to connect with people. So.
It's so true. And it's I was reading, there was a study, and forgive me, I can't remember if it was by Stanford or Harvard, but they did a study into people's development over time, and they split these two groups of people who had got similar backgrounds, similar experience, similar all attributes, as much as they could be. They were like groups, and one group got praised for success. So every time something went well, they got praised, they got cheered on. That was a good thing. And the other group got praised for trying. So they got praised for giving it a go, for keep trying, even if it went hideously wrong. The fact that they tried was enough. And over time, it was proven that the group that got praised for success only ended up underperforming the other group, because they became fearful of doing anything that they couldn't guarantee they were going to be successful for, because their identity had now been aligned to a successful outcome only. Whereas the group that were praised for keep trying, for iterating, for constantly giving it a go, learning, iterating, and giving it another go, went on to outperform, because their identity was in giving it a go. And keep trying. And we see that so much in organizations, don't we, where we praise output instead of the willingness and the drive to keep trying.
I think that is so important, because how many great ideas are left on the table because somebody just got to the point where they got the praise, and then that's it. So I think that we really have to build that mental acumen of how do we develop this? How do we keep going and making it better? Because we can't settle. I mean, that's just it. What do you say?
Absolutely. I go completely aligned on that. And it always reminds me of, I think it was Thomas Edison who said, I didn't find one way to make the light bulb. I found 10,000 ways not to make the light bulb. And I guess the reason that one always resonates is he didn't stop. It didn't matter how many times he failed. He didn't go, oh, well, it's a rubbish idea. We're all going to sit with candles still in this day and age. It was like, there has got to be a way through. And in each iteration, something worked that hadn't worked in the previous iteration. And so that constant looking for, not only, yes, it failed, and I understand that and acknowledge it, but what was better this time than last time? So what improvement did we make? How did we move forward? And I think, I see that often in organizations where they're really good at that. They do iterative development for people on looking at, here's what you're doing really well, here's what was better than last time, and then here's the areas that we can work on again. But I see lots of other organizations where they're still only really measuring on the output, which doesn't really set the person up for success in being able to develop all the skills they need, does it?
I don't think so. I think that is a big hindrance to what we get into, and to be able to teach that to people and help them to understand it, that they don't just get to the point. I think we get so busy in what we're doing that we don't take the time to slow down And I think one of the biggest things that I try to do with my people is have them block out time that they can just think about what they're doing and not spend so much time just working and staying busy all day, but give yourself a moment to think. And one of my favorite things to do is I got this from John Gordon, but it's called taking thankful walks, where I would just get up and take a 15, 20-minute walk and just think of all the things I'm thankful for. Kind of calms me down, gets me reset to where I need to be, and then I can come back and really focus on what I need to do, because otherwise we just keep going all day.
I love that. I'd never heard of that. But I love the idea of that thankful walk. Me and my little girl, one of the things we do 2 or 3 times a day is we do our what we're grateful for. It might be over breakfast or over dinner. Like, what are we grateful for today? And it can be a brand new day. It can be, something went well at school. It doesn't really matter what it is, but just taking pause, especially on the difficult days, to acknowledge that even on the difficult days, there are always things we can be grateful or thankful for. That kind of resets that balance, doesn't it? Of feeling like the world's against you, to going, it's okay, it's a bad moment, not a bad day. So we
It
can
is. Don't we all need that though? I mean, we need that time to really kind of reset because we get beat up enough all day long until it's great.
absolutely. And very often we beat ourselves up more than anybody else. I remember having a boss many years ago who sat down with me and said, Kim, I've never seen anybody who beats themselves up as harshly and as regularly as you do. And if it weren't so tragic, it would be a key skill. I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, that's feedback.
Yes.
But there were those elements of going, actually, unless I can start to learn to be my own friend, and my own, for me, it's always been my own critical best friend. And I say that in the fact that they're my best friends, so they love you and they care about you, but they're going to let you know where you get in your own way before you leave the house and strut around thinking the next thing's sliced bread. They're going to give you that perspective so that you can filter it out. But I went from just being my critic to having to learn to be that critical best friend. And I think that's one of the things as leaders we really need, isn't it? That level of self-awareness that comes with clarity of what we do well and what we don't do so well.
Yes, I think we've got to be our biggest cheerleader because we really need that. But in the same sense as that, like you're saying, we have to give ourselves that critical feedback and be truthful. And I always say, what is the actual truth when you're dealing with a situation? Because a lot of the times we want to tell us or tell ourselves a truth that's not really there. We get anxious, we get worried, and we start all these what ifs. But we really have to draw that back and really focus on what is the absolute truth about the situation. And that so many times in my life tends to calm me down right away. That I start focusing on what the absolute truth is, and then I can put the whole issue or problem into perspective.
So I'm smiling because that so resonates. And one of the things that I often say is there's always three sides to the truth. There's my truth, your truth, and the actual truth. And that's because our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So something happens and we make it mean something, but what you make it mean might be different to what I make it mean, based on our experience and our past, etc. And so one of the questions I ask myself regularly is, what's actually happening and what am I making it mean? Because that just like zones me in on the fact that, oh yeah, I'm off over here and I've created a story that I'm now fully engaged in and I'm dealing with, instead of actually factually, this is what's really going on. This is what needs to be dealt with right now, and that part's just clouding your judgment. So I like that whole grounding ourselves to what's really going on, so that we can actually take the right action instead of being distracted by the stories that our brains are designed to create to fill the gap.
That's it. I like how you put that, distracted, because that's all it's doing, is distracting us from things that we need to be doing and trying to actually solve the problem. We're so wound up into thinking what ifs and how could they, or what were they thinking, when everybody's going through something. And it's always good to look at that perspective from all those different angles and not get distracted.
It's so true. And it's one of the reasons why, at the moment, one of the things I'm working on a lot is the power of curiosity. So, as children, we are born naturally curious. We have no judgment. We just are intrigued. What's this? What's that? What's the other? We've all probably been around that child that asks why 7 gazillion times. You're like, oh, just because it is. But we are born with that kind of like that curiosity, and then we get told that it's a bad thing. We should put that down, and that's like childish things. But when we look at something from a position of curiosity, we look at it without judgment. We look at it to seek to understand, to just go, oh, I wonder why you think that. I wonder what you can see I can't see. Instead of, well, you're wrong and I'm right. So let me tell you where that goes. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of curiosity in leadership now and in the future.
Oh, I think it's one of those at the very top of the list, because if we're not curious, how are we ever going to move to the next level on things? Because like I said, we tend to get so busy at what we're doing and we just solve a problem and move on when there's so much more behind that. We have to really unpack it, because we may not be able to, like Edison, really develop something into it, but it may give us a thought, an idea, or something that we can use on the next problem that comes up, or another problem that someone else is working on. And I like what you said about judgment there and judging what's going on. And I have a great definition. I heard this years ago. The difference in judgment and love is judgment tells somebody they're doing something wrong and does nothing to help them, whereas love will tell somebody they're doing something wrong, but then come along beside them and try to fix it. And I think that's where that curiosity comes in. We have to really, uh, like a better way to put it is love our people and really come alongside of them and not just look at it as you're doing this wrong, but that you're doing, yes, you are doing it in a way that's probably not right, but let me see if we can help you fix it, or how can we make this situation better, and breed that curiosity in other people.
That is so true, and yeah, it really resonates with me that we need to come from a position of love and care, because people are trusting us with their career, with who they are, with kind of how they attach themselves. And I think, for me, I remember many years ago, and again, I love your thoughts on this. I was sat giving somebody, actually I was in an interdisciplinary, and I was trying to explain to this person what they needed to do differently, and they were not getting it at all. Miles off. And in the end, they were like, oh, I'm just going to sign it. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that because you don't understand why you're here. And so if you sign it, in a few weeks' time, we'll be back in here. And in a few more weeks' time, you're going to have no job and you don't understand what you need to do differently. And I tried so many ways of having the conversation. And then it suddenly hit me that we were having two very different conversations. So I was talking to the person about their impact, about how it transpired in the world, what they were doing, and the impact it had on the organization and the other people. They were talking about their intention, what they were trying to achieve, what they were trying to deliver. And so we were never going to be able to have a good conversation because we were having two very different conversations. And so I tried in that moment. I was like, okay, let's scrap everything we've said. Let's start again. Let me start with what I believe is your intention. What I believe you're trying to achieve is to be a good team player, all the things that I thought the person was. And they were not, yeah, that's me. Brilliant. That's what we want you to achieve. So that's great. So we're aligned on that. Can I now let you know some of the ways where you're getting in your own way from achieving that? And they were suddenly able to be open to the feedback of the things they were doing that was misaligned. But so often we are, as leaders, having different conversations with people, aren't we? Because we've not checked where they are to check that they are able to have the conversation we want. Does that resonate?
Oh, 100%. One of the best lessons, and I think you get so many business leadership lessons from outside of the business world if you just pay close enough attention. And in a newlywed class my wife and I ran one time, we got a lesson that a lot of our arguments and disagreements were related to the fact that we weren't coming at something in the same way. And the example was, if you take a cone and you lay it on its side, and one of you standing on one side and you see the big round end, the other one standing on the other side seeing the point, and you're trying to explain what you're looking at, you're both looking at the same thing, but you're coming from different directions. So getting that alignment and trying to see it from the other person's perspective to be able to work through it. And then another, while you were talking, it just popped in my mind, was a friend of mine that went to church with me really focused on talking about we have to worship in spirit and in truth. And I really got to thinking about that. And you said there's so much in the business world that we really, I think those intentions or the spirit, where we get caught up in what our intentions are and everything, but we miss the truth sometimes of what we need to hear. And we need that person to come along beside us and kind of weigh those things out, because I think it's like a river, and where the river is our intentions or our spirit and emotions, and those banks of the river are the truth. And if we don't have that truth there to guide that river, and that's kind of what our as leaders are doing with our people, then it's going to flood, it's going to destroy things, and we really need that balance in what we do.
That's so true. I think balance is so important, isn't it? And for me, whenever things go out of kilter or go up, it's because they've gone out of balance. You suddenly think, why does this all suddenly feel so heavy or so hard? And it's because you realize actually you've fallen too far down one path and not kept that balance, not kept that perspective. But one of the other things that we want to talk about on the show, because we've talked a lot about problem solving, but which is great, because the one thing we know about life is it will give us the odd problem to solve. So I mean, that's good to have as a skill, because we're going to get plenty of opportunity to use it. But actually, one of the things I'd love to talk to you about, it is kind of like that self strategy. So yeah, when we're wanting to lead with clarity, and we're wanting to lead ourselves first and then our people, because we have to do both of those. How do we start to define the strategy that we want to apply to take on both of those leadership roles in duality?
I think we have to, I think you brought this up a while ago, we have to constantly be looking and evaluating ourselves every day and seeing, where am I lacking? Where do I need to strengthen what I'm doing here? And to be able to come along and build some systems in place to help our people. Because you're right, there are always going to be problems, there are always going to be things like that. But if we're not taking some time every day to be building and talking to our people outside of problems, they're going to get to the point too where they see you coming and think, oh, there's a problem. So we want to really be able to focus on how do we develop our people, and we're all busy. I think that's what I hear mostly from people I talk with and other coaches is, I'm so busy. When am I going to have time to sit down and go over the positive things or develop my people? That's when I think we have to build those in to what we're doing every day. We're in the break room, or we're in finishing up a meeting and about to leave. Take that time to really add something to those conversations and try to help people. We don't have to sit down for an hour-long meeting with somebody and talk through it, because a lot of the times we don't have the time and they don't have the time for that. And that's going to create another problem for them when they see you coming. So I think if we can incorporate those into the moments during our day, which is not always easy at first, but again, with anything you do, once you get used to that, you're going to start seeing opportunities pop up everywhere. And I think once people understand that and realize that, they're going to be ready for those longer times that they can sit down and really go through things that aren't necessarily problems and issues, but how do I develop myself in this? What systems do I need to put in place? I always love to give people suggestions for books and things like that, that if I remember a book I've read or something I've done that can help them, because then on their own time they can do that, and it gives us a great opportunity to discuss some of the things that they read or they may have questions on.
I love that. I love a good book, and I'm dreadful for giving those as recommendations, because I think they aid a conversation, don't they? They allow you to to find a commonality and a discussion place. And I think when we've read that book that helped us, you want to be able to pass that on, don't you? You want to be able to say to somebody else, oh, do you know what? I read this the other day and I think it might be really useful, because it gave a different perspective. It allowed me to think of it in a different way. And I think your point of you're trying to find ways to bring in that thinking time, that creativity time. And often we all say, oh, I've had thinking time put in my day, but actually, was it genuinely thinking time or was it problem solving time? Because we can fall into that trap of we're natural problem solvers, and therefore as long as I solved problems today, I did some thinking, whereas it's the creative thinking that sometimes is lacking, isn't it?
I think so. I always like to give myself time. I don't necessarily think it's meditation, but time where I just clear my brain and try not to think about anything and just sit with myself for a little while. And I think that helps me get reset. And I'm not talking about an hour, whatever, but just maybe 10 minutes that I can just reset, try to clear out everything that it gives me a good starting point for creative thinking and not just like you said, problem solving, because we're wired that way, especially as leaders, to okay, always look at where's a problem, where's something I can solve. And I think more so as men too, and I know me as a husband, I love to listen to my wife, but then I try to give her, this is the solution. And I really worked on that over the last few years of where I don't do that. And again, that goes back to asking those questions and helping people solve their own problems or just listening to them as they work out those problems.
That's such a great point, because I think we can, as leaders and as people, sometimes leap into that trying to solve the problem when actually the person might not want it solving. I've got a good friend who sometimes she'll ring me up and say, do me a favor, put me on speakerphone, get yourself a cup of tea and go out of the room for 5 minutes. I just need to run. And of course I never do leave her to that. But actually what she does in that moment is allow me to realize she doesn't want answers. She wants somebody to hold the space while she just gets it off her chest. Because then she'd probably come up with the answers on her own, or she might want to have your help getting the answers. But sometimes we don't ask what good would look like for that person, do we? You know, you're sharing this. Can I ask what would good look like for me to do? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to hold the space? Do you want me to give you any pointers? And so we can end up inadvertently frustrating the other person, can't we, by solving the problem they didn't want you to solve, because they just wanted to deal with it.
I think that's so good. And I think I know Simon Sinek did a series, or maybe I'm just seeing it now, some things he did on YouTube about being a real friend. And I think that's it. And he just talks about different ways, just like you just said, not to solve problems, sit with somebody, ask them what they need at the time. And I was really touched by he said he had a friend had a parent that passed away, and that, everybody at that time is coming around you. They're asking, what can we do? All this stuff. He just said, every day at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you. Don't answer if you don't want to. But when you're ready, I'll call and you can answer. And he said it was probably about 3-4 months, something like that, that the friend answered. But being there, I think, is so important. And I think it's so important in leadership is just being there for your people and what they need. Because, again, we get so busy sometimes. And when you get that knock on the door and somebody comes in, you really want to be able to meet them where they are and not try to rush through it or give them answers or go on with whatever you're doing. Take that time.
It's so true. Yeah, I've got a good friend who always says that true listening is an act of love. When we listen to understand or just to be there, rather than listen to interject or to solve the problem so we can get back to our own busy day, is a real act of love, because it's not something that happens to us very often. I often ask people, when was the last time you felt genuinely listened to? Mm. And it's horrifying to see how hard that can be for them to reconcile when that last was.
I know. I think that's so important. And I think we tend to do things that we want done. So we want people to, listen to us and do this. And oftentimes we don't think about okay, I know what I like in my life, but what do other people like? And my wife has helped me to work through that. Like I said, you get a lot of leadership things in business outside of just the business world, but really you tend to treat other people like you want to be treated. And you've got to stop and really pay attention, do that active listening, be be in the moment, be there, and find out what do they need and what do I need to give them.
It's so true. It reminds me of many, many years ago. I was doing one of those dreadful leadership role plays that I had when I was in the corporate world, and the people that were delivering the training were like, "Kim, you can come up and you can deliver feedback." And I was like, "Oh, I can't think of anything else." So it was awful. Stand at the front of the class. It's just cringy. But I remember before I started sitting down with the guy and saying, "Can I ask first, how do you prefer to receive your feedback?" Which I thought was a perfectly acceptable first question to ask. After all, it was his feedback, not my feedback. I mean, I was giving it, but it was for his benefit. And I remember he was absolutely floored. And he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And I went, oh, okay. He said, what
Yeah.
made you ask it? And I was like, well, it's your feedback. So there's no point me delivering it how I want to deliver it because it's not my feedback. If I want it to land for you, which is my reason for giving it to you, I need to understand how you best receive it. If not, this is just air. Just air
Yeah.
and noise. We very often don't do that, do we? We don't take that step back and say, yeah, how can I best help you in this moment? How are
And
you best to achieve this?
I do. I agree with that so much because I think what we don't ask those questions and people don't ever think about that. He had probably never stopped to think, how do I want my feedback? We just plunge into it or we expect people to give us what we should hear or what we want to hear, or I don't know. But stopping to ask those questions, I really think gets people to thinking. And it also builds trust and respect with people because that's what you want on your team is to really feel people to feel like they're valued. And I think that's what that did was make him feel like he was valued and really get to a point where, wow, I never thought about that like that before. Or how do I want to get my feedback? Or how do I want to be rewarded even? So many times, oh, let's just throw something at somebody. Yeah, somebody wants a vacation day or somebody wants this, but do we really take the time to ask them, what do you want as a reward?
Yeah. And actually, how do rewards work for you? Because some people love that like big recognition and standing up and being recognized in front of other people. Personally, I'd rather go and hide in a cupboard than have somebody do that to me. But if nobody, I don't get me wrong, I like the acknowledgement, but I like the acknowledgement privately, on the side, which feels about me. And for me, when I'm stood up there feeling awkward, that feels about everybody else. So, but until you ask the question, you can inadvertently, instead of making somebody feel good about themselves, because that's what you were trying to do, make them feel uncomfortable about it because of the way it was delivered.
Yes. And we can do more damage that way because, if what we think we're doing to help somebody really could be hurting that situation a lot worse. And getting them to be able to come to us and tell us that at that point is probably not going to happen. But it is so good. I think we need to take more time to get to know people and to be able to do that.
That's so true. Matt, I can't believe where the time's gone. We're literally at the end of the show, and that just flew. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. But before we go, can you share with people how they can get in touch with you and who you help?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different ways. Like I said, I try to help anybody in a leadership role, but not even necessarily in a leadership role. If you're in a place that you have questions, or I think, like you said, everybody's a leader. So if you're an employee that doesn't have aspirations to be a leader, you can help your leader be a better leader and help lead you better. So I am on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me there either through searching Matt Gillis because I've tagged myself in so many different things there. So I would love to connect with you out there and to be able to help you. I post something every day, but at least 3 times a week, especially on LinkedIn, about different areas of leadership and how to be a better leader in those areas. So I would love to connect with people.
Amazing. Matt, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight and your thoughts and your advice to us. It's been a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found today's episode to be as insightful and inspiring as I have. And until next time, take care.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity. Reflect back. Agree on one next step. Join the Listening Mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day. Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, only here on USA, Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. Led by visionary Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.